The Tower of London stands under a late morning sky, its ancient stones casting long shadows across the courtyard, where history whispers in every crack. A sharp breeze carries the briny scent of the Thames, mingling with the murmur of anticipation among the gathered dignitaries near the White Tower. A VIP visit is underway. A foreign ambassador, cloaked in diplomatic importance, flanked by a small entourage in sleek black suits, their polished shoes clicking on the cobblestones. At the heart of the ceremonial guard stands a royal guard, Henry, 34, with a face as unyielding as the fortress itself. His scarlet tunic is pristine, the silver buttons glinting faintly despite the overcast light, and his bearskin hat, a towering symbol of tradition, frames his dark brown eyes, which scan the scene with the precision of a hawk. He's been here before, countless times, ensuring protocol is followed to the letter. Today, though, something feels off. He can sense it in the air, a crackle of tension waiting to ignite, like the distant rumble of thunder on a clear day. Henry's post is near the jewel house, where the ambassador's motorcade will pass. The crown jewels just out of sight but heavy in the air with their symbolic weight. His role is clear: maintain the ceremonial line, ensure no unauthorized personnel breach the perimeter. He grips his rifle, its cold metal a familiar anchor against the nervous energy buzzing through him, and stands rigid, a pillar of duty amidst the flurry of preparations. The ambassador's car glides into view, a polished black sedan with tinted windows, escorted by a team of police officers on foot. One of them catches Henry's eye, a police officer, mid-40s, broad-shouldered, with a buzz cut and a scowl that could curdle milk. His name tag reads Officer Daniels, and he moves with the kind of swagger that screams trouble, his navy uniform slightly crumpled from a long shift. Henry's jaw tightens. He's seen this type before, the kind who thinks their badge outranks centuries of tradition, who'd rather bulldoze through protocol than respect it. Daniels has his own battles. He's been on duty since dawn, dealing with a string of petty thefts along the riverfront, his patience worn thin by the time he reached the tower. This VIP escort is his last task before a break, and he's determined to get it done his way. Quick, efficient, no nonsense. He doesn't have time for the pomp of royal guards, for their stiff rituals that slow everything down. To him, Henry is just another obstacle, a relic in a scarlet costume, not a man who's bled for his country in the deserts of Helmand, who's carried the weight of tradition since he was a boy listening to his grandfather's stories of guarding the Queen. The motorcade slows, the ambassador stepping out to a ripple of polite applause from the dignitaries, his gray suit impeccable, a red pin on his lapel catching the light. Daniels, leading the escort, directs his team with sharp gestures, his voice a low bark over the hum of the crowd, his radio crackling with static as he coordinates the route. But then he veers off, crossing the invisible line Henry has been trained to defend. The officer steps into the ceremonial zone, a narrow strip of cobblestone reserved for the royal guards, his boots scuffing the ground as he signals for the ambassador to follow, his impatience palpable. Henry's pulse quickens, a drumbeat in his ears. This isn't right. The protocol is sacred. Police handle the outer perimeter, guards manage the ceremonial core. Daniels is overstepping, trampling on centuries of tradition with the carelessness of a man who's forgotten what honor means. Henry's mind flashes to his first day as a guard, the pride in his father's eyes, the weight of the oath he swore. He can't let this slide. "Step back," Henry says, his voice low but firm, cutting through the damp air like a blade. Daniels freezes, his head snapping toward Henry, eyes narrowing to slits. The officer's hand twitches toward his belt, not for a weapon but for the radio clipped there, a reflex of authority challenged. "I said, step back," Henry repeats, his tone harder now, his grip on the rifle tightening until his knuckles whiten beneath his gloves. Daniels doesn't budge. Instead, he takes a deliberate step closer, his chest puffing out, his scowl deepening into something dangerous. "I'm escorting the VIP," he growls, his voice gravelly, each word a challenge, his breath visible in the cool air. "You don't tell me where I stand, soldier boy." The insult lands like a spark on dry tinder, igniting a fire in Henry's chest. He's not just a soldier, he's a royal guard, a living piece of history, a man who's faced death and stood firm, and this officer is treating him like a traffic cone, a mere decoration to be ignored. The ambassador pauses, sensing the shift, his entourage exchanging uneasy glances, their polished shoes shifting on the wet stones. A bead of sweat trickles down Henry's temple despite the cool air, mixing with the faint mist of drizzle. He steps forward, closing the gap, his bearskin hat casting a shadow over Daniel's face, the black fur damp at the edges. "This is my post," Henry says, his voice a controlled storm, each word measured but heavy with warning, his dark brown eyes locked on Daniel's. "You're breaching protocol. Move. Now." Daniel smirks, a cruel twist of his lips that doesn't reach his eyes, and shoves a finger into Henry's chest. The contact a jolt of defiance that sends a shockwave through the guard's frame. "Or what?" he sneers, his breath hot with the scent of stale coffee, his tone dripping with contempt. That's the match that lights the fire. Henry reacts on instinct, years of training surging to the surface like a tidal wave. He grabs Daniel's wrist, twisting it just enough to force the officer back, his movements precise, controlled, a soldier's reflex honed by combat. But Daniel's is no stranger to a fight, his years on the beat making him quick and scrappy. He yanks his arm free, his other hand swinging up, catching Henry's shoulder with a hard shove that sends the guard off balance. Henry stumbles, his boots slipping on the wet cobblestones, the ancient stones slick beneath him, but he catches himself, his rifle clattering against his side with a metallic clang. The dignitaries gasp, a collective inhale that echoes off the ancient walls, their faces a mix of shock and unease. Henry's vision narrows, the world shrinking to the man in front of him, the roar of his own heartbeat drowning out the whispers of the crowd. He lunges, his gloved fist connecting with Daniel's jaw, a sharp, controlled jab that sends the officer staggering, his buzz-cut head snapping back. Daniels retaliates, his own fist flying, grazing Henry's cheek with a glancing blow, the sting sharp and immediate, a red mark blooming on the guard's pale skin. For a fleeting moment, they're not a guard and an officer. They're two men, pride and duty colliding in a flurry of blows, the sound of knuckles on flesh drowned out by the ambassador's shout for order, his accented voice cutting through the chaos. The fight lasts only seconds, a storm that burns out as quickly as it ignited. Two other officers rush in, their boots pounding the cobblestones, pulling Daniels back, his face red with fury, a bruise already blooming on his jaw, his scowl now a grimace of pain. Another royal guard steps forward, his scarlet tunic a mirror of Henry's, his presence a silent command for Henry to stand down, his eyes sharp with unspoken reprimand. Henry straightens, his chest heaving, his cheek throbbing where Daniel's fist grazed him, but his dark brown eyes never leave the officer, burning with a quiet intensity. Daniels spits on the ground, a glob of saliva landing on the cobblestones, his glare venomous, but he says nothing as he's led away, his shoulders stiff with wounded pride. The ambassador's visit resumes, the motorcade moving on toward the jewel house, the dignitaries' murmurs fading into the breeze, but the air remains charged, the cobblestones bearing witness to a clash of honor and authority that neither man will soon forget. Henry resumes his post, his face a mask of discipline once more, his bearskin hat slightly askew, a single bead of sweat tracing a path down his temple. His cheek stings, a reminder of the cost of standing his ground. But inside, a fire still smolders, a mix of pride and frustration. He thinks of his grandfather, who'd stood in this same courtyard decades ago, who'd taught him that duty isn't just about following orders, it's about holding the line, even when it hurts. Daniels, now at the edge of the courtyard, glances back, his scowl softened by something else. Regret, perhaps, or grudging respect. Henry doesn't return the look. He stands taller, his rifle steady, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the Thames glints under a sliver of sunlight. Duty won, but at a cost. One he'll carry long after the tower's ravens take flight into the gray sky, their black wings cutting through the air like a promise of peace that feels just out of reach.